Minnesota Vikings road to the playoffs. It's funny how through 11 games in this 2020 season, we as Vikings fans, we've been on both sides of the coin so far. I mean, early on through the first 6 games, it was endeavor for Trevor. Now it's, oh man, the Vikings, they may have a legit shot of making the postseason. And admittedly so, deep down inside, when you've seen this story play out so many times as a Vikings fan and you get jaded eventually, deep down you're like, I'm channeling my inner Jim Mora. Playoffs? The Vikings in the playoffs? But all that aside, the Vikings are right there in the thick of things. When we look at the NFC playoff picture as it stands right now, the Saints, the Packers, and Seattle, they all have the 1, 2, 3 spot, but they're pretty much all jockeying for position between those 3 seeds. Then you get to the 4th seed, which is going to go to the NFC East Division champion, which when I saw this at first, I said to myself, the Giants. I thought if anything, the Washington football team, they'd be at number 4. The New York Giants right now, if the playoffs started, they would be the 4th seed. That's crazy. Then you've got the Rams at 5, Tampa Bay at 6, Arizona, they're at 7 now that the playoffs have been expanded to 7 teams for each conference. The best bet for the Vikings to make the playoffs is if the NFL expands their playoff seeding to 8 teams per conference, because there's a contingency plan to do it, and I'm going to do the best I can explaining it because my head hurts after sifting through it, but basically, if meaningful games are canceled, so I think we're heading into week 13 this upcoming Sunday, or I guess technically starting tomorrow, Thursday night. But if a game were to get canceled next week entirely, and there's a domino effect to where it affects future games in the weeks to follow, then potentially we're looking at an 8th team per conference making it into the playoffs. If that is the case, then the Minnesota Vikings, they would control their own destiny, but you have to beat Jacksonville, because if you don't, and the Atlanta Falcons, they pull off the upset against the New Orleans Saints, then the Falcons, they would take over that 8th spot since they control the tiebreaker between the Vikings after beating the Vikings in week 6. Now, assuming that the playoff format stays the same as far as just 7 teams per conference, then the Minnesota Vikings, they're going to have to battle it out with the Arizona Cardinals. Right now, they have a 6-5 record with 5 games left, 2 of which against the Rams. The next game and the last game are against the Rams, but in the middle, that filling there, they've got 3 favorable games, the Giants, the Eagles, 2 games against NFC East opponents. My God. But then they also have the San Francisco 49ers. Their floor is 9-7. I don't see the Cardinals doing worse than 9-7, so the Vikings, potentially, they have to win out, which means that also includes wins against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I know they're struggling, but they still have Tom Brady and all those weapons, and the New Orleans Saints, which I know Mike Zimmer has owned Sean Payton and the New Orleans Saints in the playoffs, but that's still going to be a tough battle. If you win out and the Arizona Cardinals go 9-7, the Vikings, they should be a shoo-in to make the playoffs. And again, I know it's crazy that we're talking Vikings and playoffs, but when you've won 4 out of your last 5, and in the case of Mike Zimmer before this season, you've been winless against Matt LaFleur and Matt Nagy. You've beaten both head coaches, both on the road. You've got another game against Chicago later in the season. That's impressive. And if you can pull off the hat trick and make the postseason for the first time in consecutive years as head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, that would be very, very impressive. You hear that? Hey, Mike Zimmer Foundation, you hear that? That's me giving credit to Mike Zimmer, something which I have done several times. It's funny because whenever I have done that, y'all dudes have been almost nowhere to be found. However, whenever I have fairly and accurately critiqued Mike Zimmer as head coach, oh, y'all like kids playing double dutch in elementary school. Oh, I can't wait to go off on Randy. Randy never gives credit to Mike Zimmer. Blah, blah, blah. Really? That would be impressive if Mike Zimmer pulls off that hat trick. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. We do this 3 times a week. Mediocre at Best Sports Podcast with Realistic Randy. Check me out on Twitter at Realistic_Randy, Facebook at Realistic Randy. Next podcast, Vikings versus Jaguars preview. That will be tomorrow. We'll see you then. Like bobbing and weaving like a boxer. Oh, I can't wait to throw this haymaker at Randy. Oh. Give them credit. I do it all the time. We'll see you then.